From my home to yours, welcome to EMS at Sea Level. Today, unusually, I have two guests, two co-founders of a company called WAZP, Shane Hassett and Mariana Kobal. Is that how I pronounce it, Mariana?
That's correct.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Before we get started talking about the business and what you've been doing in the last 12 months as we've been through this very strange, disruptive time, can I ask you to just introduce yourself and tell me a bit about your journey up until the founding of WAZP? Mariana, perhaps you can go first.
Yes, thank you, Phil. My name is Mariana Kobal. I'm originally from Ukraine. Together with Shane, actually, we've been working quite a bit already before we started this company. We've been involved in many different corporations which are producing volume goods like furniture mainly, but to customers like IKEA and Metro and Tesco and all those kind of big brands. And there we actually looked into the different processes and how we I personally was involved with R&D and product development, and there were so many different obstacles to get the right product onto the market. There is always, it takes time to source something, especially if it's out if it's not standard. So that's where we started to look into the 3D printing, and that kicked it off. Actually, 7 years
Shane,
ago.
What were you doing before you got to WAZP?
I studied in university. I studied construction technology and project management. Big dreams in the Irish economy of going into that. But I graduated in 2008, just when the economy, or when we had the big crash in construction, was hit most hit the hardest by that, I would say. So my options were to stay in Ireland and try and find something, or to go abroad. And I ended up moving to work for a company that was supplying furniture from Ukraine into the EU. So that was my initial introduction into manufacturing. That was kind of 2008, 2009. Mariana was working at the same company at the time. And then over the course of the years after that, I continued to dig into manufacturing, particularly factory setups and manufacturing processes, while Mariana was focusing on product development and deployment. So our history was, while maybe not in the 3D printing area, it was always in around manufacturing and volume manufacturing in particular.
Yeah, and the supply chain that goes around it. And Shane, we could do a whole show on the Irish story in terms of the ups and downs of the economy with respect to manufacturing, but that's another tale for another day. Mariana, when you, with the experience you had, when you decided to do your own thing, what was it about 3D printing that attracted you, and what was it you were specifically trying to achieve with 3D printing that perhaps you hadn't been able to do traditionally?
Yeah, so absolutely, the flexibility of it, the fact that we could actually get, it actually started with one particular product to UK market. We had the specific component, we couldn't get it anywhere. We had the option to carve it, or and then we thought about, okay, so someone read something about 3D printing, and it was back in 2009 maybe, and then we started, and it actually turned out perfectly. And we were like, okay, this is only one component we are talking about. Can we use it more? And then we started to use for more and more sourcing of different unusual parts, and creating better products, actually better, details of the furniture, for example, and then it kicked in step by step. What else can we do? Can we make it easier for companies like we are working with now, or with companies like we are supplying to, or the companies that supply to us? Can it actually make a big, massive difference? So that's where we started to look into it, and study more and decided, okay, let's learn about it. This has so much opportunity from the ease, flexibility, design, better products, faster products to the customers, you know.
Yeah. And Shane, when you look at it from a customer point of view, because I know you're involved in a lot of the customer facing activities, what is it they're looking to solve specifically? Is it a design challenge? Is it a supply chain and sourcing challenge, or is it a combination?
It's very varied depending on the business. A lot of businesses have, you know, different pain areas, but I would say over the last number of years since we set up the business, it was always, we decided to focus on larger businesses, businesses where we felt prototyping wasn't the main objective, volume products were the main objective, because that was our goal. We wanted to make 3D printing useful in a volume environment. So it was genuinely a push from our sides. We were contacting these businesses, asking them what they understood about it and trying to understand their pain areas. So with the eyewear industry, for example, an area where we see a lot of potential, we went and asked them, you know, 3D printing is a good technology for this. Why aren't you using it? And the feedback was really initially quality and price. So that told us in our area to work on. If we want to provide value for this areas, we need to work on a quality that's comparable with what's already out there. And we need to find pricing, make pricing work in a similar sort of a way. So in that case, it was really about they understand the opportunity, but the technology wasn't really there. Can we bring it to that level? In other cases, for example, we did a very large project with IKEA where we delivered products to 50% of their stores around the world a couple of years back. That was really about the design challenge. Can we make something that is really unique? They have, you know, massive access to supply chain, and product ideas are not really an issue for them. It's the next level of product, something more unique, something that helps them to stand out, and as well with that that price balance. So that was really the kind of initial stages. But over the last year, an area of our business model that we had wanted to focus on, which we call distributed manufacturing, or what is becoming known as nearshore manufacturing, is becoming really, really important. For example, now we're involved in projects where we're flipping the sales cycle on its head. Products are being sold or will be sold on websites, orders delivered directly to us, and then we fulfill directly to the customer from the local markets. So that D2C, or that direct to consumer, has been something that was always part of our vision. But we have, what we've seen over the last year is that there is a real kind of understanding of the risk around supply chain. And one of the key factors to dealing with that is producing products closer to the point of need and to the time of need as well.
Yeah, and I think that's really fascinating, Mariana, when I look at it from an operations point of view and I look at it from a supply chain point of view. One of the things I love about 3D printing is it's a digital process. So basically you have data. So this idea of designing in a single location, order anywhere, print anywhere is really exciting. Does that mean you become a company that has 3D printing all around the world, or are you an asset-light company that has manufacturing partners around the world? How do you service that demand in terms of your manufacturing footprint?
So what from very start we've said, we are not going to own the machines. That's not our business model. What we do is we develop together with our partners. We develop the network all around the world and produce at different points, again, closer to point of need. We discuss every different product, the standards that it has to be produced. So it's not just that we, bring the order and just drop it, but we actually, together with our partners, develop the processes, efficiency, no waste approach, all these factors in advance. And then once we are ready, we know that, okay, this is that partner is suitable for this type of product that comes in, So absolutely no machinery, only for
Yeah.
R&D purposes. We do this year invest €500,000 into the R&D center, but that is for purpose, and there's actually quite a bit of impact of COVID as well, for purpose of trying, make the prototypes and test the products in-house before we can roll them out. So just to speed up the different, the product development and implementation to different locations, because with volume, there is one factor that is very, very important and has to be taken into account, is the repeatability of quality.
Yeah.
So let's say one product that is produced in US or in EU or in Australia, it has to be the same. Yes. That is the challenge, and that's what we are doing now in-house to make sure that the product is tested and get the ready spec, ready processes, everything to our partners, and that's it.
Yeah. Well, Mariana, that idea of being asset light and having all that deployed manufacturing capability makes a lot of sense to me, because when I look at the 3D printing industry, it's moving so fast, new machines all the time, new materials. And it's actually the price of those materials and the price of those machines that's shifting, and actually meaning that 3D printing can become a more viable solution. You mentioned in there the impact of COVID and the fact that you're perhaps doing a little bit more locally in terms of prototyping. What else have you seen through the last 12 months? I mean, last year was the strangest year any of us can remember in supply chain history. This year we thought everything was going to settle down, but now we have different disruptions in the marketplace. So constant challenges. How have you responded to that?
Yeah, I think that absolutely the strangest year ever, and it continues, but I think that we are all a little bit more adapted to it. But first and foremost, when it started, obviously we had plans to meet with different suppliers, develop more markets through meetings, going to the different fairs, and that's how the business used to be done, the business development, but obviously that didn't happen. So what we had to do, we had to switch to conferencing. We had to switch a different way of opening up the new, developing our network and supply chain. So I think that we have succeeded a lot, and actually, to be honest, the COVID situation even helped a little bit to convince everybody that this is the way to go, that this is the way how to manage the risk. Have your production close to you, have your products to be produced at the point of need, not overstocked, Our mentality is the waiting for product is waste, but also the stock is waste as well. So the fact that the market changed so much actually helps to really proven the concept and the business model that we have set up 7 years ago, and we are so happy and really, really proud as well for all the team that we have been pushing for this model, when there was no COVID, and with COVID, it's just proven that it's actually something really future focused.
And it's future proof as well, isn't it? I think what's really interesting when you look at disruptions like the pandemic, they don't create trends, but they certainly accelerate trends. And you can say that this 3D digital revolution was definitely coming, and the idea of print to order, and particularly for things like spare parts, you don't want to hold thousands of different parts on inventory. You want to be able to print them where they're needed and when they're needed as quickly as you can. Shane, when you look at it again from the way your customers responded to to COVID. Did you see a lot of people coming to you during the disruption and say, hey, our traditional supply chain has been disrupted. It's time for us to try something new?
Yeah, absolutely. I think in the very earliest days, the medical industry was the one that responded most quickly. It was obviously dealing with probably a lack of certain types of PPE and protective equipment. Now, I would say that after maybe 2-3 months, that the existing supply chains in China and so on started to recover from the initial shock and the initial spike in demand. So in 3D printing, I think it had a role to play, but less so after the initial couple of months. What we did find as well is that a lot of businesses, the businesses that we'd been targeting for quite some time beforehand, now they had both the time and the initiative to engage in the project. Some of their internal projects had started to slow down a bit, and there was an increased awareness around the risk in supply chain and the things that 3D printing and supply chain as a service might be able to offer them. So I would say that it was driven by the customer interactions were driven to a new level by COVID and by the awareness of the options, but also an awareness of the risk. I think any analyst in logistics or in supply chain, they would have been well within their rights to say that something like this is never going to happen, or something that was never going to happen. It was an outlier really in the basically in the statistics. It was an outlier. So it really did force people to have a look and say, right, this can happen and these things do happen. We might know what is the next COVID or the next Suez Canal or whichever else. We can be fairly confident that something is going to happen. So how do we deal with that? We deal with it by, in WAZP model, we deal with it by creating products that are more flexible. So digital libraries produced closer to the point of need and produced on technologies that are faster. And that's something I think that we do have to deal with in this industry. When we talk about direct to consumer, we are including, it's quite similar to drop shipping in the experience, in the consumer's experience, but we have to manufacture the part and finish the part in the same time that a drop shipper will go pick it up and get it into the delivery side of things. So that is one of the challenges. It's the experience of the customer is something that all our customers are focused on. They don't want their customer to have to wait 2-3 weeks for a product just because it's maybe a slightly safer supply chain at this point.
No, we've gone from that whole pendulum that constantly swings from just in time to just in case and back again is something that we've all had to deal with. And I think it's been fascinating over this period because, as you say, the other major trend we've seen accelerate through this period is direct to consumer. Bricks and mortars challenged at the best of times, but COVID's made it even worse. When you look at a ideal customer rather than a customer's customer, Mariana, do they come to you at the ideation stage, or do they come to you with a product that's maybe made subtractively and say, hey, how do we make this using 3D printing? What's a typical engagement and what's an ideal engagement?
So it's actually different. Obviously, I'd say the most successful projects and products are when we start to develop for 3D printing, for the technology that we select. So we have both. We have sometimes customers coming with the ready files, but we still have to do the adaptations and so on. And if we are talking about the volume manufacturing, and that's what we do from day one, is the focus on how to improve the processes, how to make the 3D printing mainstream. And this volume product types, they have to be from the very start thought through how to fill in that space within the machine, how long it will take to print, how much material it will use, what is the optimum thickness, because we don't need to have too much, we don't need to have too less, but we have to, to find that right structure, right construction, right, everything to fit in the best, most efficient process and make that product actually viable option for customers like IKEA, you know.
Yeah.
And that is the best, the most ideal process for now, just until the time, which we believe will happen, is when there will be more and more skilled designers to develop for different technologies in 3D printing, and we see it happening. There are a lot of trainings, and even some college curriculums are coming in around technology. So it's a great trend. For now, we are doing it. We hope that it will be much more scalable, and we see the trend there as well.
Yeah, I think that's, I look at design as being hugely important. Design for additive manufacturing is a whole discipline in itself. Design for disruptions a discipline. Design for supply chain is a discipline. One of the areas that you do talk about on your website is sustainability. And I think design for sustainability is really important. I think we all need or want and need a manufacturing industry that takes better care of the planet than the current model. And part of that is, if you can 3D print something I order in the town I live in, then that's gonna help massively. But sustainability is important to you guys. Just talk to me a little bit about how you're kind of fulfilling that sustainability dream.
On the fulfillment side, I think that there's a number of areas where we can impact sustainability and where sustainability is really important to us. But we see ourselves as a company that fulfills product to the consumer. So in that end of let's say our thread, then we see the reduction of stock. The really only last mile transport is a very important impactor there. The types of let's say energy tariffs that are even used to produce and fulfill our products at the point of supply, we like to have an impact on all those types of things. And the closer we can get to the end customer or to the delivery point, then the more of an impact we can have on sustainability from the fulfillment side. But then in the choice of materials, before we even get to production, what types of materials are we looking at? There's a PA11 is probably a lot more sustainable than PA12, but at the moment when you're talking about cost factors, PA12 is probably the one that's more market accessible for our type of customers. So then from a sustainability perspective, we have to look at how do we drive the prices of these more sustainable materials to a level where our customers can really take an economic decision, a decision and say, this is a product that is fit for purpose, that is affordable for the customer, and is built on a sustainable material or produced using a sustainable material. So that's a massive part of our vision, and a part of our day-to-day work is how do we make, there is a lot of sustainable materials there, but maybe the cost factor is what's impacting them. So we need to push that. We need to be sourcing more and more materials that have higher levels of sustainability and choosing those. And then taking another step back from there is the design process, as Mariana mentioned a little bit earlier. Do we need all that material? 3D printing allows to use structures and so on. So material is a major factor. Our choices in fulfillment is a major factor, and in our day-to-day business as well, how we engage with our staff. And we work with One Tree Planted and have a matched funding program for the staff, where trees, that if they plant trees, we'll match that on a month-by-month basis, and so on. So it is really core to what we do. It's one thing to say that 3D printing is a technology, a sustainable technology for the future. It's another thing entirely to act that way and to behave that way, and then to prove it as well.
Yeah, and Mariana, I think for me that's really important or really interesting from an operational point of view, because you've got to be able to audit that. I assume some of your customers like IKEA want the trail there for sustainability and want to be able to audit that as part of their sustainability story. But it's important for you, when you look at a material, there's a manufacturing process that goes into that material. There's a lot of moving parts that you have to consider to really make a secure, sustainable story.
Look, I can give you one example, for example, with the product for IKEA that Shane mentioned. We had in all different 50% of the shops in around the world. We actually produce 80% of those products from totally used material. So basically, what we have done, we have decided, look, sustainability is in our DNA. We don't want to harm the planet. We want to, use the waste is absolutely the word that we like hate, and we don't want to see it. So what we try to do, we looked into the stocks of our partners on the network, and we say, look, what you are having 10 tons of material sitting there that you are not using? Let's have a look and let's try and use it. And guess what? The products that were supplied were produced 100% from the materials that otherwise was waste laying on stock. Our partners didn't know what to do with it, and it would be still laying there, and that kicked in a totally new mentality for, with the product development. So if the product features are allowing to use these used materials, that is always option number one. And the next step is always to replenish only minimum amounts. So we still use focus only on the used material. And what we have in our plans as well to really introduce more bioblend into the mix, because obviously this is the future, and at some point we end up without the stock of used materials. So what we're looking is sustainable way of blending in with some kind of other byproduct ways, like for example coffee, or there are different ways to use for different applications. So we are looking into this bioblends for sure. And so that's on the material side. Then from the process side, there is so much to work around, not only wasting the materials on the way, but also how much products can that machine actually output per hour. And that's when during the product development, we are actually really making sure that every single cubic centimeter within the space of machine is used. And the more products, like an example from the recent product, which is not in the market yet, so we can't
name names.
The name, but we have increased the output by 2.5 times through the product development process. So basically, within the same period of time, instead of 70 parts, we are producing 178 parts.
Wow.
That is another side of it. And then obviously all the processes efficiencies, eliminating the steps. Like there is another, like with the process of where we have a production, I think at some point we have calculated that there is like the process includes like up to 40 steps, 45. We have reduced it down to 10. So that's, it's a lot of moving parts, like you call it, and it's all up. And we are really focusing on making sure that we are getting better and better in and more sustainable company. And all our team is really pushing it as well.
It sounds like there's a real passion for it, and I really like the story there of using the redundant stock, because it's solving it's solving a sustainability issue, but it's also solving an inventory overhang issue, because there are materials in the industry that will be replaced and people will have stock of them. So for you to actually take a look at that and say, hey, let's utilize that in a product that maybe isn't so material sensitive and be really smart about it, I think is hugely valuable, and it really shows the level of commitment there is to lean and green rather than just a greenwash approach. Last question: when you look forward, as you kind of come out of the pandemic, what are your ambitions for the business? Is it more scale, more of the same? Any major changes underway? Shane, perhaps you can answer that first.
Yeah, absolutely. Really coming into the second half of this year, we're really excited about the things that are happening. We have some major projects with some major brands. I think that there's two models that are working for us. This what we call sustainable stock, stocks that are varied by market and have market adoptions that are adaptions and are only produced according to their need, really, with a little bit of prediction. But then more significantly again is the direct to consumer. And we have very, very interesting project, one very large in particular, but it's an area where we've been focused on, and an area where we feel that we're finally getting the validation that this is, if I went back 6-7 years and showed you the first pitch we made, this is what we made it for.
Yeah.
We're probably a little bit early, but that's survive long enough to implement a dream, I suppose, is the objective, really. So we're seeing that vision for fulfillment, that direct consumer and engagement with larger brands is really starting to come together now. And in our distributed network at the moment, we're producing in a number of areas in Europe. Part of this one of the projects means that we'll have to expand to the United States and Mexico sooner rather than later. And that gives us a chance to implement another part of our vision. As you mentioned earlier, we're asset light, but a part of what we do is we engage with the manufacturers of machines and materials in order to be able to, control the cost, to have an impact on the type of machines that are coming out. So we want to roll out what is our blueprint. And Mariana mentioned the investment that we're making in our own R&D facility that allows us to just drop a factory ready to go basically in any part of the world that can fulfill the orders that we're generating on the customer side. So yeah, we're very excited that we spent a lot of time building towards something and really had a very dedicated focus on volume and not prototyping, and now we're starting to see that really come to fruition. So I think the next months for the business are very exciting.
Yeah, and Mariana, we're going to give you the last word. I guess it's all about ambitions for the ecosystem, isn't it? It's the whole ecosystem, the whole digital ecosystem that lives around these clever designs and clever products that you're producing.
That's correct, and the ambition is there really to have the little 3D printer or 3D printer automated factory in every post office. That is once we have that, we would say that yes, we have achieved our dream. And the digitalization and automation of it, that's what will make it happen. And right now, I know we have some different half automatic, different ways of dealing with things, but step by step, reducing the space that factory needs, making it more automated, having it at more points around the world. That is the way that we are going to. And we are expanding into US. The next step is China as well. And look, we are on the good way, and we believe in it. And actually, nowadays, reality shows that this is really, really needed, and the conscious consumers will basically support it for sure.
Yeah, And I think you make a really good point there about the conscious consumer. Consumers are more concerned, particularly consumers that are buying D2C, are much more concerned about the credentials of the supply chain, the credentials of what's being manufactured. They care about the sustainability in the same way you do. I see it as a very scalable business model. I see it as more importantly, the right business model for manufacturing to be sustainable in an environmental way, but a sustainable business that can flourish in the future. Mariana, Shane, thanks so much for talking to me today. I've really enjoyed our chat, and I wish you every success and look forward to talking again soon. Thank you.